Hello and welcome to Score, der Game Talk at Radio 98.1. My name is Emma and with me today is Logan Hillier. You may recognize him as Istvan Toth from the Kingdom Come Deliverance franchise. Welcome and thank you for taking your time and being with us here today.
No problem. My pleasure.
All right, so the first question I have for you, and this might be a bit it's a question that might make you think. What was the first encounter with Warhorse like? So how did it all start?
I think there was some kind of casting to begin with, and I was called into the office. I think we read scripts and stuff.
Mhm.
And then there was some kind of complications. I can't remember what, but after those were resolved, I still had the part of Istvan Toth.
Mhm.
And then I think the first meetings about that character were in a kind of boardroom, in a small boardroom with Daniel and the other writers and other actors, and we were just playing around with the text, and Daniel was explaining what he wanted from us, and we were just trying different things out, and he gave me different instructions and so on, and rein it in or more energy, and so that was the first encounter.
So you knew from the start that you will play a villain in the franchise.
Yeah, but I didn't realize how major Istvan Toth was, until I played the game. Really, I think. Although I had some foreknowledge of the script, I didn't see where it all fitted together, And that's something I've been saying, in a variety of different platforms recently, is just that, when you're working in the games industry, it's kind of like working on a Manhattan Project or something. It's very compartmentalized, people aren't saying anything to anyone. So you don't necessarily understand the significance of your character. And it was the same with Stalker 2, actually, where I played Professor Herman.
Yeah.
That was the same experience. I really didn't realize what a kind of pivotal character Herman was at all.
Yeah, he also plays a significant role in both games. I didn't knew that either. So I didn't play Stalker, but I still know a bit about the lore. So both Istvan Toth and Professor Herman are really, really kind of big roles in both games.
Yeah. And then they both came out at the same time, right? So roughly, within like, I don't know, what was it, 4 months of each other or something. So it's been a lot of attention recently, because normally I'm a theatre actor and I do some kind of minor characters in TV shows and films and this kind of thing. But it's been very interesting handling all the attention that's garnered. Yeah.
So KCD, was that also your first project where you would do mocap and voice acting, or did you do previous projects?
No, I think that was the first one. Yeah. And that's why maybe that theatre background is quite useful when it comes to mocap. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this as well. But when you look at the studio setups, when you see the behind the scenes and how it works, it's about the size of a small theatre. So and what doesn't happen in films, right? You have a lot of kind of filler scenes in films, but in games, all those filler scenes are basically your gameplay, right? So the cutscenes are always kind of epic.
Yeah.
Right, in these games. So they're always extra kind of theatrical, I think. But then you've got to balance that kind of, I think, studio acting with the fact that they've still got a very close up of your eyes and your face and all those details with the cameras right up there.
Yeah.
So again, when you're in a small studio theater, the audience is very up close. So you're quite used to that kind of detailed acting. So it's a really, really interesting new kind of frontier in acting theory, I think.
Yeah, and KCD 2 was also a very big upgrade, right? So they didn't do as much mocap and didn't have that advanced technology for KCD1 back then, right? So
yeah, I mean, what was different, I think, in KCD2 was this extra kind of headset we were wearing and I remember there was a power pack kind of at the base of your neck, and I remember doing the kind of advanced face capture stuff with like you're sitting in like a weird kind of chrysalis of cameras, you know, with all these, very interesting. So yeah, definite massive upgrade in the tech and the studios themselves. They moved to a different venue. It was all very, very cool, you know, very, very trendy place, really nice offices.
Yeah, you talking about the technology behind this kind of reminds me of the Avatar franchise, where they also kind of were pioneers in terms of motion capture and face modeling. So they also use the exact kind of technology to copy the faces onto the characters. It's a very
I'm wondering, you know, because it's obviously there's lots of people doing it now, and you know, major actors are involved as well, like major celebrity actors. And but I wonder, you know, obviously keeping abreast of what's going on in the AI kind of area, you wonder how long this is going to exist for. Actually, you know, maybe it's a very brief kind of window of art, and then it's going to be swapped for AI generated stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there are people who are willing to fight for it, AI cannot replace art. So I think this is a general statement that can be made.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, cool.
Okay. There's another question I have. Was there a fictional or non-fictional inspiration for Istvan Toth? Was there a character you saw and said, "Yeah, I have to take that kind of as an
yeah." There were elements of different characters in there, you know, from different things, kind of blended together. In terms of the general kind of style, you know. So the Sheriff of Nottingham, which was an Alan Rickman character from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, is the closest probably to Istvan Toth in terms of the way he moves, his swagger. But I think what then the next level probably of work on that is Istvan Toth's relationship with the aristocracy, and he's not like I think he thinks a lot of them are kind of idiots, you know. And he's trying to carve out his own path, maybe his own path to revenge and so on. So I think I tried to kind of work some kind of like class grievances into it, and the character that went into the mix from that was this character called Jean-Paul Marat from Marat Sade. Maybe you know it. It's a famous play, but it's about well, it's very, very complicated, but to simplify it, I'm playing a mental patient who is playing Jean-Paul Marat of the French Revolution, and so he's got lots of very, very vitriolic, vile speeches about the aristocracy and the priesthood. You know, he's very, very acidic, and with that voice for that character, I started using my original accent from England, you know, which is a little bit more common sounding, and then the kind of, you know, oh hello, I'm the king, you know, this kind of like received pronunciation English. So I started messing around with my regional accent back then, and what Istvan Toth has is this kind of blend. So when he kind of dips into he's speaking more like a commoner. It's normally if he's got some kind of class issue in that moment, or he's maybe trying to appeal to Henry, right? So sometimes because Henry's a commoner, right, he kind of drops into that. And again, the character work for this guy is because he's like a, he's a bandit leader, but he's also a nobleman, and they're not like his bandits, right? That's like a group of mercenaries and bastards that he's picked up.
It's also kind of a paradox, right?
Yeah, and you've got to stay in control of this mob. You know what I mean? Like, so I think on one hand, yeah, he's ruthless, right? I think that's obvious. But on the other hand, he's got a common touch, right? And he knows how to speak to ne'er-do-wells. He can say things like, if you just stay with me, then you'll be a king one day. You know what I mean? Like, I can make you something more than you are. So, and that's also his relationship with Eric and his relationship with Henry. It's that kind of like common touch, because I think he's really between the world, and he's a foreigner, right?
So it has some kind of Long John Silver vibes, because he also is someone who has a team around him, even though he isn't technically the leader, but he also can always manipulate or say that his group of mercenaries and pirates should do a mutiny the second it turns bleak for them.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't trust mercenaries, can you? You can't trust mercenaries unless you're paying them well, right? Now, there was this thing with, I just mention Napoleon quickly, because it kind of fit into that play, in the sense of the play was actually set in the Napoleonic era after the revolution, right? And then you've got the kind of restoration of this idea of the aristocracy, of the emperor, right? But suddenly he's like common as muck. So, and obviously Istvan's got a bit of that kind of Napoleonic kind of personality as well. And Napoleon had this, I think it's Napoleon who said this, he's like, a man won't work for a shilling a day or a petty distinction. You must speak to his soul in order to electrify him.
Yeah.
And that's what I imagined Istvan doing in the camps. He's actually like, either really fun, right? And they really, really like him. The bandits really, really like him. Because I mean, again, yeah, you can't push it too far with pirates, right?
Yeah.
Because they will turn on you. So.
Also, there's very, very narrow space on a ship. You can't.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't want to go overboard. But there was some kind of fan fiction art about the pirate. And I did include a kind of like sea journey in terms of the character work in the background, because he was involved in this Battle of Nicopolis. These are the elements that I got of his history from Warhorse, so I kind of like pieced something together, right? But during that escape from Nicopolis, I imagined it took place by sea. And because he went with Sigismund, and they escaped by sea, and they went down to Constantinople, and there was all this other kind of like story that is actually historically true, with Sigismund. So where was Istvan during this time? Maybe being a pirate, little bit, and mastering the rogue skills. I think during that time.
Yeah, he's definitely a rogue.
Yeah.
One other character that also kind of reminds me of him. And I just remembered that because I recently started watching Star Trek again, is Q. I don't know if you know the Star Trek.
Someone else mentioned that. Huh? Yeah, I think it's he's like got that condescending kind of British kind of like, oh, you're so silly, Patrick. So you're so silly, Picard.
Yeah, and he also calls him out on his flaws every time. He's the little voice in his head, the little devil on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting. Yeah, maybe when he comes back, Istvan comes back from the dead and everything, he's actually really Q, and it was all a kind of like Q phenomena.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, Q. I haven't thought about that for a while, but yeah, again, it's that period I think of TV, because I would imagine that Robin Hood was at the same time, right? And you had these kind of classically British villains, right? That all had to have they had the very similar kind of like stereotype. So certainly like the the outer casing of Istvan Toth is that kind of British villain, you know, like a little bit sinister, a little bit gay, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's subversive, isn't it? It's like undermining you all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, go on.
So that is also, I mean, those are the most interesting characters usually, because they are so random rogues that are play by their own rules and also get involved with the protagonist.
Yeah, and perhaps even more so with computer games, because you know the protagonist, even though it's Henry, right, and it's got Tom McKay's face, it is you. You're playing that, and you're kind of picking a story out from all of the different possibilities that exist.
Yeah.
So Henry kind of changes, right, a lot. But Istvan is the same, right? Regardless, it doesn't. He's kind of like, you know, if you're going to try and unpack the mysteries of certain characters in the franchise, Istvan Toth's got to be one of the big ones, because there's so much mystery wrapped around that guy.
He's one of the few stable things in Henry's life that don't change at all. So maybe in an ironic kind of way, it gives him stability, or his conscience.
Yeah, it's very, very, very dark stability, but yes, I agree.
Okay. What is this might be a random question, but I have to ask this. What is your favorite Istvan line out of the two games?
Oh, at the moment it's that sorry, is that my computer? At the moment it's what is it? Revenge doesn't give your life meaning, you know. It's just childish nonsense. It won't feed you, and you can't fuck it.
Yeah, I think
that's a very good line.
It's a line that is always some kind of thought provoking. Maybe if you start to question your goals or your
and I think that's what he's doing in that scene, actually, which is why it's interesting, because he's roguing him, right? And then you think, is he really, you know, when he's telling certain things to Henry, is he telling him the truth because he's confessing? Yeah, maybe if you pass the speech check, but in every other circumstance in that conversation, there's always an ambiguity as to whether he's just trying to manipulate you. And I think it's interesting from talking to, you know, players, is that if you do have that conversation with him in the tower, right, and no, just kill him, right, you know, you actually go through the whole dialogue, then it does make you question the rest of the game. It does make you question what you're doing, and it possibly deepens the experience, right, if you do have the conversation rather than just chucking him out the window straight away. And I think that's also an interesting choice of Henry's. You know, if you're going to kill him dishonorably, you're going to kill him honorably. You're going to talk to him, right? And talking to him is actually the most dangerous thing that you can do, because he is going to kind of eat into your psyche, and it's you, right? You're the player. It's not like you're watching this happen to like Luke Skywalker or something. So you know, Istvan Toth is roguing you. And there's another line from the jail scene that I think is really good, which is they've not yet built the gallows I'll swing from, boy. That's great.
Was also great.
yeah, that's a really good line.
I think my favorite line is also very, very random. I think it's the goulash meat line from the first game after they captured Eric and put him in front of the walls, where he completely loses his mind for a second. That was
he's like, what is it? I'll let every manjack here have his way with this bitch. I'll dice cobbler into goulash meat.
It was so out of character. I laughed so hard.
I saw an interesting discussion on that, actually, on Reddit somewhere, where they were discussing whether or not, to what extent Istvan Toth is a chaotic, evil Joker type character, and whether he's more of a lawful evil type character. And I think he is lawful evil. So all that time when he's like yeah, I just want to see you all die and everything. He's just roading them again. He's like just trying to bluff them, right? He's like, it's all a bluff. Like, if you know, and that also plays into this obsession I think the character has with ransoming and taking people hostage. Like he's very used to that, and he uses it all the time as a kind of strategy. Like, I'll hand you over for some cash later. You know, I'll just stick you in the bank. Kind of thing, and that goes into his backstory a little bit because after Nicopolis, right, loads of these aristocrats were captured, so they had to be ransomed back, and that cost loads of money. And there was also all this like administration basically attached with getting these guys back, and it took ages, right, like negotiations and like sending treasure wagons back and forth. So I think whenever he gets someone, you know, like Lady Stephanie is always like cha-ching.
Yeah, the little money signs in his eyes glowing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say he's lawful evil. I think chaotic evil would be Eric, right?
Yeah.
Because he, in the end, he's absolutely driven by revenge, and he goes on this path that leaves
I've got my
leaves
headcanon
no
for
stone
this
unturned.
stuff, which I shared in a podcast the other day. But I think there's a good argument that, you know, obviously he has this burning hatred of the Turks. Istvan Toth, right? Something terrible happened to him.
Yeah.
And then you look at this strange relationship they've got, right? Where, okay, you've got the sexual angle, but then just putting that aside for a second and thinking about him just as like a war dog.
Yeah.
That he's like training as a dog, you know. And then you look into like the Turkish tactics at the time, and they were like using this troops called janissaries, which were basically captured orphans, and they were like, you know, basically brainwashing them into
reprogramming them.
Yeah. So, and I think if Istvan's like switched on, right, and you know, he realizes they've lost Nicopolis. And he knows why they've lost Nicopolis. They've lost Nicopolis because the Turks have got super soldiers. Yeah. Right. And
the others attacked way too fast, right?
They attacked way too fast. Well, no, it's to do. I think there was some dispute between the tactics they were going to use.
Yeah.
Sigismund wanted to go in with the Romanian foot soldiers, and the French refused to be led by peasants, so they charged, butchered the Turkish foot soldiers, got over the hill, and then got massacred. Yeah. Idiots.
Went downhill fast.
And then it went downhill fast. Yeah, and everyone was just trying to get out. But I think, if he had this like right in the cannon's mouth kind of thing. And that's kind of attached to the finger of God scene, I think, as well, because the Turks were so into cannons, right? And suddenly,
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, and suddenly you've got Istvan Toth going, "Hey, I've got my cannon, baby," right? And finally, right, because he's seen them. Yeah, there's the cannons, there's the janissaries, right? So is Eric some kind of like, you know, a janissary experiment? You know, is he trying to use some of these techniques on this kid? You know, that's about the limit of where I pushed it. But he is, you know, is he just the bodyguard? Right, bodyguard who's his lover, right? You're a dead mercenary's lover, right?
Yeah, that line was brutal.
Yeah.
But I was also that I went the extra mile. I got back to Trotsky and picked up Istvan's chaperone and put it on before the fight with Eric. I thought there would be an extra line with Henry if he found the chaperone beforehand, but unfortunately not.
Did you wear it?
Yeah.
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 I saw one like really modded, like heavily modded Henry versus Eric duel, and Henry was completely covered in the full Istvan Toth outfit, and they're just like, "Oh my god, you sick people!" You know, like he's going up to the guy wearing my skin.
Oh god. Yeah, you can't call yourself a better person than Istvan Toth if you do stuff like this.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. I think, and again, but that's the point of the game, isn't it?
yeah,
You know, like
that's exactly the point.
I have yet to play it. I am going to start a hardcore, brutal playthrough on some kind of stream. But I did play KCD1, so I know how savage the game is. But I played I played Henry quite nice in KCD1, and but I think I'm gonna do the full on like schizo core Henry for this for the KCD2.
I mean, first gameplay is always the good route to tip your toes in the water, and second playthrough is full on murder goblin.
Yeah, murder goblin. Yeah, that's a good name for it. I'm gonna try and be a bit like sensitive to how much damage he's doing. So I think he'll probably try and like rogue it through quite a lot, and yeah, we'll see. But I am gonna do some kind of like dark version from the beginning this time. Not the good. It'll be an evil playthrough straight away, I think.
It's also kind of ironic that you can get through the whole game if you know alchemy well. If you have 3 potions before every fight, you basically have to one hit your enemies. So the alchemy, I did the alchemy route because I'm a very, very lousy blacksmith.
Right. So normally I do the alchemy route, and KCD1 I did the alchemy route 100%. And it was mainly forestry and hunting, and then kind of like enough sword play to basically get through it, right? And but the problem with the alchemy is like picking every nettle in the village, isn't it? You know, that's what you have to really do. You pick every nettle in the village in Skalitz, and then you leave Skalitz with like a herbalism of 4 or something.
Not me picking over 2,000 thistles at night.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that for the first playthrough, because especially if people are going to be watching it, I don't think I'm going to be doing too much alchemy. I might have a bit of a crack at just for funsies, you know what I mean? And then on the second time, I'll probably go through the alchemy. But I love the alchemy, you know, like I always favor alchemy in any kind of RPG if it exists.
Yeah, if alchemy exists, you should use it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the most complex alchemy systems I've ever seen in a game. So
cool.
It's also a lot of fun. So it takes time, but it's also really, really relaxing.
Well, I'll have a go at the blacksmithing, but I think I'm just going to steal everything. I'm gonna probably try, because I don't normally play like thief type RPGs either, so I think it'll be fun for me to grapple with all the thievery and all the speechcraft. So I'll basically play it as a kind of Istvan, I think. But you know, in my head, Istvan also did the alchemy. You know, Istvan also did the alchemy in the early phases of his life. So I don't
know. Did you also play other games other than KCD1?
Yeah. I played lots of games. Yeah.
So things like Baldur's Gate, right, or something else?
No, I'm trying to think. The last kind of like tactical RPG type thing I played was not really an RPG. It was XCOM, XCOM 2, which I quite enjoyed. I don't think I've played like a party type RPG, like where you manage a party of people, for a very long time. Normally I'm a strategy gamer. So like the Civilization franchise and Tropico and these kind of games. But in RPGs, the ones I've probably dumped the most hours into, the ones that I consider the best RPGs, were Morrowind, right? Because that's how old I am. And Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, New Vegas fan.
New Vegas was incredible.
Yeah.
New Vegas is so much fun, and and it's another one of those games like KCD. You know, you just laugh so much. It's just like so funny. The game is like genuinely funny, and there are really good funny moments. There's stuff that I've had recommended to me, like Elden Ring, and what else was recommended to me? Was it another Dark Souls? Oh, Bloodborne, right? That's a kind of like Dark Souls game.
So the Dark Souls
and I'll do it. I'll do it if there's an interest in watching me play, right? Then I'll do it, you know. But like otherwise, like most of my time's on strategy games, really.
Also, a kind of specific question. Did you hear the Czech or the German version of Istvan Toth?
I heard the Czech version. And I've heard the French version, but I haven't heard the German version yet.
So if you like, I have a clip ready with one.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, nice.
Gut gemacht. Das war wirklich gut. Du hast die Bauern gerettet und deine Männer zur Schlachtbank geführt. Krieg ist eine dreckige Angelegenheit, auch wenn du dir nicht gern die Hände schmutzig machst. Und wen wirst du als nächstes für deine Sache opfern? Deinen Judenbruder? Kapon? Dich selbst? Du spielst zwar dieses Spiel, doch die Regeln verstehst du nicht. Und zu guter Letzt wirst du verlieren. Du hast nichts gelernt. Du hast es nicht verstanden. Und das, obwohl ich mich so bemüht habe. Und doch teilen wir dasselbe Schicksal. Meine Familie wurde auch getötet. Von den Türken. Ich habe mich gefühlt wie du. Und Erik ging es ebenfalls so. Deswegen half ich ihm auch. Wir sind eine große Familie von Waisen. Naja, natürlich hast du noch einen Vater, auch wenn er nicht bereit ist, dir seinen Namen zu geben.
Yeah, I like it. It's really sinister scene, isn't it? It's a really sinister, disturbing scene, and all of those. I don't think I've even seen everything from Istvan's nightmares yet, because weird stuff keeps coming up, like where he's in a blacksmith's, like where he's throwing Henry out the window. I don't even know what's going on anymore, whether that's just all modded or whether that's in the game.
Yeah, that was the German version. It's from a guy called Charles Rettinghaus. Also, ironically, one of the Star Trek cast. He voiced Geordi LaForge in The Next Generation.
Oh, in the dubbing, in the German dubbing.
German dubbing, yes.
Okay.
So, and this was kind of surprising for me to know that this is the same person who also did the voice acting for Istvan Toth in the German version of the game.
That's cool.
Of both games.
Yeah.
So he also did the dubbing for the first game for Istvan Toth. And
I
think
right. Maybe we should have like some kind of meeting of all the European Istvans.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And make a kind of mega Istvan, right? By combining our powers.
One mega Istvan, yeah.
Yeah, together we can save Europe.
So,
but no, it's very, very dark. I mean, I've just been watching Dark.
Dark is
the third time, I think.
Yeah, it's a very nice.
Yeah, and that acting, because I watch it in German, right? I don't watch it with the dubbing, because then you lose something of the Germanness, right? If you watch it with the British dubbing.
Yeah.
So I just use the subtitles, but because I've been learning Czech as well, I was watching it in German with Czech subtitles this last run through. So I really like the way it sounds. I really like the language. But anyway, just from that sample there, it's all those words like familia, kinder, you know, like in dark, you know, because everybody ends up kind of like in that kind of weird web. There's all those words like beginning, end, das Ende, all that. Love it. I love it. It's so good. And I picked up German acting in another interview, mainly because of Dark, to be honest, because I think the acting is kind of next level in that, and I think it's really, really great work in a bunch of different ways. Like, but generally European acting is phenomenal. But it's different, you know. It's different. It has every country has its own like style, and that German kind of like. It's like a didactic kind of language. It's quite like instructive, you know, like, and that's that tone, that same kind of instructional tone that Istvan had there is similar to the voice of like Adam in Dark, you know, where he's like explaining the grim metaphysical situation that they're in, you know, like it's just like, this is the way it is, you know, and German always sounds great when you're doing that kind of like, that kind of declarative stuff, I think.
Yeah. So but, very cool. Menacing kind of Istvan right there.
Yeah. And then there's those, and then it's really difficult to ignore these the parallels with the SS, I think, that are in that scene, you know. It's pretty close to the Wire, I think, when he's stepping across and he's all in the black and he's kind of got the jack boots on and he's like, who are you going to sacrifice next? The Jew boy and everything. I always felt that was a bit. I mentioned in another interview that it's a bit Gestapo-esque, like the way he kind of moves.
Yeah.
Kind of coloring, the kind of background tone. But then he's got that kind of like devilish, like satanic element in there as well, which is why he's a bit Beetlejuice, you know. He's a bit like kind of Beetlejuice-y. What they've done with there's loads of tones in there. But I thought about that one before.
And
because it is about, you know, in all these situations and throughout history, you know, like this is what did someone say? Kingdom Come 2 is not about the hero, it's about who's your favorite war criminal.
Also an interesting take. Yeah, but that scene also was the scene that reminded me of Q from Star Trek, because there's this particular scene in the episode where they have the first encounter with the Borg, and Picard is on that little ship, and Q is behind him and kind of whispering into his conscience.
Does he do the stake around?
Yeah, this you need me, right?
Yeah.
Just admit that you need me and my powers to escape this. That you cannot beat the Borg alone without me.
Yeah. No, I can see it. I can see the Q-esque thing now. Now you've pointed it out. Yeah.
Yeah, just
but that scene as well. The end of that scene, like as far as I can tell, like the faces of the corpses that are surrounding him all have Istvan's face. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true, or do I
think
that?
so. I've always thought it was the faces of your fallen comrades, but they all look kind of similar now that
they're all this
out.
Or they're Henry. I'm not quite sure. But
either him or Henry. Yeah, that might be
the one laughing right in his face. That's kind of like leaning on the side like that. If you zoom in, that looks like me. But maybe I'm hallucinating. I don't know. But yeah, those scenes are really creepy. There's a bunch of other stuff in there, you know. There's a bunch of like that other one, where you make the alternative decision. That's like a zombie like apocalypse kind of thing that happens
at the end. Wait, also I think this is also something that was discussed online, where someone pointed out that Henry, in this scene where he spared Malashov, he always turns away from Istvan, but in the other scene where he burned Malashov down, he always kind of looks for him. So
yeah, because he's kind of embracing it on some level, isn't he? He's embracing the darkness.
He knows that he's there, but he wants to get rid of him, and eventually he stabs him again with the sword in the other scene. And the light changes where in this scene only Istvan was in this white kind of light spot, and in the other scene they're both in this white spot.
Yeah, and someone was saying it's like Istvan's cynicism and amoral black and white kind of view of things that are seeping into Henry. So that greyness that comes into Henry is the fact that he's dying inside and he's being consumed more by Istvan. Yeah, it's great. I mean, like, it's interesting. It's interesting because I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, right? Whether they were going to. Because I thought there was two ways they could really do it, which was like kill him at the beginning, right, and like then just get on with the new game, you know, and just do it in the first act. Sorry, not the first act, but like the first, scene, really. Yeah. And then, or he's the antagonist for the whole rest of it, right up until the end, and then you have that tower moment. But putting it in the middle is very interesting, and I respected them for doing it because it was like, oh, this is you've got something. And then when I discovered he's in this, he's the character you have to defeat to unlock the Gutenberg map. Then he's like the gatekeeper between worlds, you know. So but that, and I don't know if this is true or not because I haven't played it yet, but I believe that the first half of the game is probably a bit more Rainbow Castle, and the second half of the game is a bit more Stormy Castle. You might get that, yeah. Is the second half is the Gutenberg map after the first one, the wedding, you know? The first map is also called Bohemian Paradise, so I think it's definitely more stoic and more dark in the second part of the game on the second map. Okay. That's what I thought. You still have some comic relief and some very, very, very funny moments, but I think the most of the fun part is over once you killed Istvan. Right. And you also, one thing I thought at the beginning, just because in the first playthrough of KCD2 I killed him without talking to him, and I killed him with a knife instead of my sword in a not honorable way, because I didn't want to let him talk, because I knew he would try to manipulate Henry to spare him. That is what I asked myself after that scene. If we talked to him, could we let him go instead of killing him? But I think it's you need to kill him to move on with the game. Well, yeah, but then to what extent is the second half of the game? He haunts the narrative, right? He haunts the narrative because his character's saying you're just like Istvan. He has to deal with the Eric stuff, and then finally his parents say it to him in the afterlife, right? They come and they say, "You're just like Istvan," you know. So in that sense, the arc of the game. If you don't say I'm sorry, if you don't say I'm sorry to your parents, they're mad at you. Really? Yeah. I think so. Well, I chose that path, and they said, yeah, well, you had to do what you had to do. So this is the last goodbye. Bye now. You're an adult man now. Yeah. And you also have one final talk with Radzik. And based on your decisions, I think you can either give him the sword and he keeps it, or he says, this sword is not intended for me, and he gives it back. It's also, I think, based on the decisions you've made earlier. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the first moment in KCD1, you know, when Martin is killed, like after they do that whole thing where establishing the peacefulness of the village, and then it's just like massacred. That really affected me, you know, like really affected me. And I did get quite a class conscious kind of Henry at the end of it, because, you know, the peasants are being brutally exploited here, and in all these different scenarios. And then you've got these problems that happen later in the game, right, where you're burning a village or not burning a village, or you know, and you're doing the same thing. You're massacring peasants, right? You're massacring your parents effectively. And I started, it really affected me. It was so emotional, that first game, getting away on the horse, you know, finally getting away on after all of that
was
mess.
Brutal
I was quite exhausted, you know, like, and the introduction is great. No, that comes after does that come after Runt? I think that comes after Runt, right? When he goes back to Skalitz, then there's the introduction.
Yeah, right? I think so. Yeah.
Damn, that was good, but it was really, you know, suddenly so bleak, and they needed to have that kind of pastoral, like romanticized medieval village where everyone's just like peasanting about and getting in larks and picking every nettle in the village, and then suddenly,
what do you mean?
so it's kind of like. It kind of like allowed me to like reflect on a lot of different things. Like definitely psychology is important in the game, because you've got these father complexes, you've got these, right? You've got all sorts of stuff going on there, whether he's gonna, you know, avenge his father or fail his father and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then this political angle as well, you know, like so to kind of summarize that, you know, the first time I played through. And obviously I already knew that Radzig was the dad's egg, right? Obviously.
It's also great that Istvan was the person to tell him that in one of the most uncomfortable places.
I thought quite a lot about that now, and actually he says, like, they told me, right? And so I've headcanoned that everybody in Skalitz knew except Henry.
It is so brutal.
So it didn't matter who Istvan asked, you know, when he was roving about the village. It was like, oh yeah, that's Radzig's bastard.
Do you hear that, Eric? He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
That's simple too.
That was brutal.
Or he's being super protected or whatever. But after that, you know, like the writing is so good with Radzig. Personally, I think he's a really, really strong character. He's one of the most interesting characters in the game, even though I have a lot of jokes at his expense. Like, and it's so well written, and it really was emotionally quite moving for me. That bit's the kind of redemptive father kind of angle. You know, you're getting your real father's approval and all this kind of stuff. I thought it was very, very well done. But then again, when you start thinking about, you know, the lives that these people, the peasants, were subjected to in the feudal system, you know, like, we can't be romantic about this. And Hans is the character that really does that for me. Like, it really irritated me in the first one, and I think it's supposed to, right?
And it doesn't get better, at least at the beginning of the second game. Because
I don't want to be called a peasant constantly by someone, right?
I hated him so much.
Great on Henry, and he's like, yeah, well, you know what? Fuck all you guys, right? I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna carve out a kingdom, and in doing that, in you know, taking this desire to be self-made or something, you know, and beholden to no one, right? But not beholden to his father, not beholden to the nobility, not beholden to anyone. Then he's like Istvan, you know. Then he's becoming more like Istvan, because again, as I played it, Istvan does have some kind of class consciousness, even if it's a bit early on, you know. Like, as I said, I played him as a kind of like proto-enlightenment kind of character. But so that whether whoever it was in the streets calling him that, I mean, it got increasingly frustrating throughout the game. And that's why I think it's quite interesting that very few people comment on that. I find that fascinating. The amount of time that people spend discussing the character's sexuality, right? Okay, it is an angle of criticism, don't get me wrong, and it's worth doing. And it's fun for everybody involved and all of that. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm surprised there isn't more, you know, kind of class conscious criticism going on, because, you know, again, like, these people were treated like livestock. You know, they're not like, let's not romanticize this. They were chattel. You know, they're called that, and that serf system didn't end until the 1800s in Russia. You know, it's like really recent that people were treated like that. And anyway, I think I'd be interested. I know there's a lot of kind of like, I could say, left wing kind of criticism of all the different sexualities and stuff, but it would be nice to see some with some class consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it's my interpretation of the matter, but I think at least Hans and Henry both are aware of this in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Because Henry even says at one time of the game that Hans is the only friend he has left, and Hans is aware of that. And Hans also, that is the thing that sort of had a redemption taste for me, because he is the only nobleman who apologizes for his bratty behavior.
That's good.
He's the one who apologizes and means it. So once he starts to look behind all this and
then does he go and free all the peasants? No. But no, I hear you, and again, I wasn't criticizing Warhorse, because Warhorse definitely built that into the game, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely there, that tension, and it's really cool the way they've done it. It's the fans criticizing things. It's there where I don't see that much kind of attention, and I think it's certainly it was a big part of my playthrough. It was way more important than maybe the second one. See, I don't know whether it's just because of Istvan Toth, you know, so therefore my bubble is the kind of like dark woke people, right? But like you know, I don't necessarily have comprehension of all the different ways that you can play it at the moment, all of the different angles. The one I hear about a lot are Hansery, right? So it's a kind of like, this is now pictured as this because of this leak, right? At the beginning of the game, it's been some kind of like big, you know, it's a big deal. Yeah. But again, like for me, like the most interesting part of their relationship was the class part of the relationship. So I am happy to hear that there's a resolution to that, because running around after him while he was on a horse was not fun. Okay, how can I kill this guy?
Oh yeah, but there's a similar tense scene in the second game where he also kind of returns to this kind of spoiled bratty behavior, but karma hits fast after that. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I think that what made him kind of sympathetic for me was that he apologized for his behavior after that.
That's good. So, and again, if there aren't other characters doing that, like, because it's not only Hans. This is the aristocracy, right? This is the way they're treating people, and it's not necessarily that they're not even self-aware of it, you know, because this is the culture, and it's just one generation after another. Yeah. So it's not like people are aware of the masses or anything like this, or democracy, you know, like anything like that at that time in history. Yeah. Apart from a few peasants' rebellions and different, you know, over that period. I think there was one in England with Richard II or something. But anyway, yeah. So it's not only Hans, it's Hanush, it's, you know, Radzig, it's all these guys.
Kind of reminds me also of a book I read. It's a book by Rebecca Gablé, Das Lächeln der Fortuna. I think in English it's Fortune's Wheel, and it's about a man of noble descent. He's a nobleman, but he doesn't want to be, because basically his whole family died, and his land was taken away from him by another nobleman, and he starts to work as a he starts alive as a peasant on that land that is supposed to be his, and he doesn't want to return to the nobility because he has a peaceful and happy life, but he eventually has to become a knight and fight for the crown in England.
Yeah, and but this is the thing with the security, right? This is the security situation. If you are like, so you've got your happy little life, you've renounced nobility, and you're going to live in a village, right, quietly, like Martin, right? The problem with that angle is you get massacred by the first army of knights that come through.
Yeah.
But the point that was clear to me, you know, in the first game is that these are not, you know, there's a romantic kind of shimmer to it, and they obviously have a romantic kind of, they appeal to that like modern day gangsters would, you know. This is like bling. This is the equivalent of like having bling.
Yeah.
And but they're robber barons, you know, like Radzig was some kind of robber knight, errant knight, you know. He was just like
and Hanush as well, right?
Yeah, so these guys are a collection of gangsters, right? And I'm not going to have any illusions about that. There's a, you know, like you're battling in the in Kingdom Come, you're obviously battling the Empire, you know, the kind of dark Empire of Sigismund and everything. But like, you know, these are definitely not somebody I would want in charge of my local town.
Yeah, and once the Hussite Wars start, it's also getting way more complicated.
yeah, I don't actually know that much about that part of history. I'm a bit weak on that bit. I'm quite good on Rudolphine Prague, but that period I'm a little bit woolly on.
Yeah,
but I'm dead anyway, so Istvan misses the Hussite Wars.
Yeah. All right, so I have another question. So this game and both games resulted in a massive evolution of fandom, and there's more than one big group of fans who come together to embrace the themes and the games themselves. And you are also kind of involved in this fandom. And what was the most significant thing that happened so far? So the highlights, so your personal highlight.
God, it's so funny every day. It's so funny.
All the memes. So I don't use Twitter or X
it's a lot of
myself,
laughs. It's a lot of laughs. I don't know if I could pull out like a highlight moment because they're so good. Like so many of them are so good. It's just a stream, isn't it? I find it interesting because it's a kind of metaverse, right?
Yeah. It's a microcosm of
and I'm beginning to wonder, like, you know, because obviously Kingdom Come winning a lot of awards for their marketing, right? And they've done a fantastic job with the marketing.
Yeah, definitely.
To the point where they've kind of like created they've made these seeds, they've made these fields so fertile, something's going to grow, right? Now, again, this is the first time I've had an experience of a fandom in that sense. So I don't know, I can't really compare it to other things that happened before, like with Star Wars or, you know, other big fandoms or anything like that. So I don't know. But what is true is that, like, for your normal player, you've got like a one playthrough, beginning, middle, and end, and it's over, right? And your main characters are like kind of Henry versus Istvan, and Hans is the sidekick, and you've got a bunch of different love interests, and you can do that with Hans as well if you want, right? That's the kind of setup. And then Eric is the kind of sidekick of Istvan, the kind of the mirror, right? The dark mirror.
Side of the mirror.
And then you've got Mark Bart, you know, at the end, giving the grand tragic essence of the tragedy of it all. Yeah, that'd probably sound good in German, though. I can imagine that probably sounds great in German.
It's okay. Yeah. So great voice acting also from a German version of Mark Bart. But this is the thing.
Sorry, to finish what I was saying. These characters, they're not that if you're playing multiple times. In the same way, if you're watching a show multiple times, or you're modding it, or you're experimenting with it, or you're getting into these, you know, backstories or derivative stories, you know, like fan fiction, like what happened before, what happened after, like all these different ideas and everything. Then it becomes more like a TV show.
Yeah.
I think, because the characters are kind of like TV-ish. Because you could make it as a film, right? You could make it as a film, and then you would have like an arch plot to it, which is basically it. But it's also what the fans are creating is this kind of like mini plot where Kingdom Come is still alive, you know, and it's still alive, and it's like the people are moving around and the characters are still interacting with each other. I have a comparison, right? And I've done a bit of study on this, but my essay on this is not finished. But I believe that when you're having voice actors interacting with fans in these kind of close quarters, which is what's happening, which is probably a relatively new phenomenon because the other actors are probably too big to be bothered about it, right? So I lost my thread. Hang on. Yeah, it's a bit like diceless role playing, because the factions are interacting with each other in the same way of like Game of Thrones, right? There's a kind of like weird proto, like I guess this happened in the fandom for Game of Thrones, right? Where people were like, "Oh, I'm Baratheon," or "Oh, I'm Targaryen," or whatever. If I remember right, it was something like that, yeah. And people were going, "Oh, he's going to win," or "He's going to win Game of Thrones," and this kind of thing. And there was so much discussion about the game. It's just so much discussion about the show, you know, in offices, at work, you know, whatever. Everyone was talking about it. This is a bit like that, right? But the game, the metaverse becomes infinite, right? But the characters, as they are, right, and there's not a direct correlation with the voice actor because there's multiple voice actors, right? Yeah. There is direct correlation with mocap and face cap because it's the actual person. But anyway, there's a bit of like what I would call diceless role playing going on from this. It's a role playing game called Amber. It's from like the 70s. I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm still kind of writing my theory on it because I think, as I said, this is probably a reasonably new phenomena in the I don't know, you know more about this than I do, so maybe you can tell me, but I feel like Kingdom Come's done something unique with this that maybe other games cannot copy because they don't actually have that structure in there that ports well into a metaverse, if we can call it that. But I don't know. But again, I don't have enough knowledge, so I can't really speak.
So the involvement of the voice actors is something really I've never seen before. I don't know if you are familiar with the stuff Luke Dale is doing right now. So he became a professional streamer now, and wants to make this his job, basically. And the involvement of him and the fans regarding the games is huge. I'm on 3 different Discord servers right now that are also KCD themed, and it's massive what happened so far, and this is really fascinating to watch it grow and evolve.
Yeah, it's like if the character now exists, right, in the metaverse, and you're taking responsibility for the character. Luke Dale's doing something different, as I understand it, because he's playing other games, right?
Yeah.
So he's playing other games, and then he becomes like Luke Dale is its own brand, right? But I'm quite interested in this diceless role playing that goes on in the communities, like that I find actually quite fascinating. So I am studying it. I am thinking about how it works and how it could work and what the massive pitfalls are and dangers involved in this, but also the opportunities that happen, right? because it's interesting because you're actually having, everyone's got a shared passion, right?
Yeah.
So and everybody seems pretty intelligent and switched on, because you kind of have to be to make the art or to interact with it in some way. So you've got a lot of like kind of willful people out there, and you've got a lot of intelligent people out there. So, and very funny people, right? So there's a lot of comedy, and so I wonder how long something like that, what the lifespan of something like that is. You know, like, when do people move on from, you know, fandoms because they've eaten all the grass, you know, they've exhausted all the possible avenues for exploration, you know? I don't know what the life cycle of these things is.
Yeah. So this is also very, very interesting thing to think about. Hopefully it will stay out there as long as it can, because this is one of the most fun places you can be right now.
Yeah, no, you're beginning to become aware of that. And again, I think some of what's happening in terms of the influence of the game, right, how influential it is because of the metaverse that exists.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you think about how much money you make making a game, right? They made what, you know, 50 million, 500 million, what, I don't know, $50 million, was it? $150 million, something like that, right? 180 million. So that's the game, right? That's the game.
Yeah.
But then you have to think about all the derivative time, right? All the clickable hours, all the content, all the streaming, all the uploads to YouTube, all of them are built, right? All of them are, they come with profit.
Yeah.
So then the game ends up being much bigger than the actual game itself. It becomes about what people are saying about the game.
Yeah.
And then there's the well, yeah, no, it's going to be a very, very interesting experience, and maybe other games will try and copy it.
Maybe. Yeah, they see what's going on, and of course they will try to copy it, because one thing that brings a lot of profit and works that way it works. Of course, you want to put this magic to use for your own game.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be rival metaverses, aren't there? Like, I was watching Ready Player One last night, and I've watched it a few times, but, like, you know, it's a bit cringy Spielberg kind of stuff. But Spielberg's always slick, you know, like, even if he's a bit cringe. Yeah. But that kind of thing, where, like, the most dominant fandoms are the things that are going to project a cultural object into the future, or whether it will be forgotten, right? So in 15 years' time, in the Ready Player One kind of universe, I think it's 2040 or something like that, you still have things like King Kong, right?
Definitely.
You still have the Back to the Future car, right? You have these cultural objects, and you go, okay, well, these were selected, but how many have been, you know, abandoned? And then you go, well, all right, well, will there be, like, they were going to put, like, Henry and, you know, Hans into Fortnite or something, right? In the, well, there was a rumor, right? There was a rumor there was going to be a Fortnite
I heard
skin for Kingdom Come, right? But in the what's happening now in places like Tumblr, Discord, X, Instagram, TikTok, all of that together, all those people that are interacting in Kingdom Come metaverse, they're already in that kind of Ready Player One type experience, where we're all in this kind of, like, semi-permanent bohemia, right? Now, I know in other, what's that? There's not Minecraft, but there's another kind of game where you can, like, build mini worlds. Second Life, maybe. Is it Second Life? One of these type of games where you can simulate some kind of world. You can actually build the bohemia and then walk around in it. You know, that would be
comes to mind, and Sims comes to mind.
Yeah, but that would be the bridge, right, between being the metaverse of Kingdom Come as you see it now versus the metaverse of Kingdom Come if it managed to make it to Ready Player One, right? So it's not long. It's probably like 10 years, right? And if Kingdom Come is still, you know, this successful franchise, which has garnered all this world attention, then there will be a metaverse with Bohemia, and you will be able to go and cosplay in a kind of virtual environment, I would think.
So I'm really, really certain that Kingdom Come Deliverance is a franchise that will have at least a bunch of fans through the years. I don't think those games will be forgotten even in 50, 60 years. So there will always be some kind of legacy to these games because they already made that huge of an impact in the gaming world.
Yeah. But again, optimistically, in 5 years' time,
Yeah.
right, this keeps going.
Yeah.
Right, your meta medieval verse keeps building and building and building with all the fans working on all this different content and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It may as well exist. It may as well already exist because it is already this kind of online shared experience. The reason I went into this kind of diceless role playing is because I was trying to get some kind of like what you just said. I was trying to understand the phenomena. We're trying to understand what's going on and what the kind of rules are, if you like. And I found some answers in there, but I don't want to reveal them now.
Yeah, I just think about the metaverse a bit more and the rabbit holes you can fall into, just for kind of I dived into the whole hysteric lore and the things the evil gang you and the evil gang posted. So I don't use Twitter or X myself, but this. Of course, this gets reposted on Instagram and Discord. And the rabbit holes you can fall into can be very, very deep. And this was one of those rabbit hole moments for me, that the fandom or the metaverse has evolved that much already that you have stuff like your memes you post on X.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, these, I don't know if they're not like gaps in the story, and I don't know if they're meant to be like explored or not, right? But if you read the Wikipedia or the Kingdom Comepedia on the reason that Istvan is in Skalitz, right? It's a bit thin. Right, there's like 3 sentences on it, and it's like, oh, he just happened to be in town and he managed to get out in time before, and it was like, okay, so obviously there's something going on there, right?
Yeah.
There's something going on. At the very minimum, what's happening in that is that Istvan has introduced himself as some kind of wandering nobleman, right? Rogued his way into Skalitz, is going and checking out all the defenses, right? Checking what's there, blah blah blah, and then he's going to report back to the Markbart, right?
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of played that, right? But obviously, when you get deeper into it, this suggestion of there being some kind of prior relationship between Istvan and Radzig, right?
Yeah,
is hilarious. I mean, like, I find it incredibly funny. I don't even know where it kind of started. I think was this idea that it's from the meme. It's from a very, very simple screenshot of Kingdom Come, and it's Istvan facing Radzig with Henry in the background, and the kind of the idea is like, what are they really saying to each other?
Yeah.
What are they really saying at this point? And then that's developed into some kind of, insane shipping kind of relationship memes. But yeah, I mean, I find it hilarious. I mean, like, I'm used to like Twin Peaks, David Lynch type stuff where not everything is always clear on the surface and you have to look deeper for things. And I think people are having so much fun, like creating all sorts of different stuff. It's fun as an artist myself, right? Just get in the mix. And I'm very used to theatre. I'm very used to interacting. I'm very used to writing as well. So, and creating. So it's fun being in the mix. I appreciate that I represent Istvan on some level, but just as an actor, I'm having an artist, I'm having loads of fun with it, right? So I'm enjoying it as much as everybody else is. And so I don't think And people are like, oh, he's seeing all this gross stuff that I'm posting, you know, and like, I've got like a 20-year career in theatre where we're doing all sorts of really, really weird things, guys. You know, like I'm not naive to the world. You know, we did comedy horror for 20 years in Prague, and we pretty much exhausted that genre, I think. So yeah, so seeing that stuff, it doesn't, whether it's like cute and simple, or whether it's graphic and complicated, or whether it's just funny, like every day, like the stuff that's just coming in, I'm just like giggling, like most of the time I'm giggling. But yeah, but you got to, I mean, there's a problem with it, and I don't know if this problem is solvable, and this is not a criticism for anybody who's listening. It's not a criticism, it is a problem though. It's like, not with necessarily, and I don't want to be too like generalist here, but not so much with the millennial generation Y, but with Generation Z, the younger generation. It's extremely difficult to tell, I think, when it's a joke and when it's not a joke, right? So there are some people getting hurt, you know, by people either reacting to something seriously when it's a joke, or they're reacting like it's a joke when it's serious. And my policy on this is just to assume everything is a joke, right? And that people really need to leave everything at the door when they go into this, in the same way they would go and play tennis, right? You know, like if you're going to go and have fun in this kind of like theatre, meta theatre kind of space, try and have fun, you know, like obviously people's senses of humor are very different, and what people will tolerate in terms of graphic imagery is very different. But there are lots of ways that you can protect yourself on Twitter, and you can protect other people as well. So yeah, but the only thing is like, yeah, it's all good fun, and I think Warhorse would say the same. It's all good fun until it's not, right? Yeah. So the moment it's no longer fun for you or the person, right, then it's time to stop.
Yeah. So did the character or the role of Istvan Toth have any influence on future projects of yours, or will you adapt certain Istvan tropes for future roles and projects you do?
Yeah, probably more likely that. Like it depends. It depends how much confidence. If it's about my own art through line, like as an actor and as a creator, right? But as an actor, Istvan Toth it's a very well constructed pastiche of lots of kind of medieval villains that I've played. You know, like I've played Shakespeare, so I've played loads of medieval villains in Shakespeare. You know, and as I said, I've got a very, very long history of playing like bad guys, right? I've got a good 10 years of, I think I started playing bad guys was around 30 maybe. So I've good 15 years of bad guys under my belt there. But because of the industry, you know, like the way the industry works, when you're being cast for something, they tend to cast you by type, unless they have a massive amount of confidence in you, right? And in your range, and that they want to sell you as an actor, right? You know, like that happens to Christian Bale. So suddenly we're selling him as an actor now, right? So he can be different, he can change sizes, he can, you know, change his voice, he can do all of this stuff. But unless they have that confidence in you, they kind of want something that they can be sure of, right? Because they've already seen it, you do it. So if I was playing an Istvan-esque role, you know, like I would love to do a vampire type or gothic type character in a modern kind of World of Darkness type setting. Would be great in a computer game as well, because I think, yeah, I'm a gamer, so I enjoy putting my energy into that medium. But that would be Istvan-esque, you know, like if I've managed to kind of like capture this rogue character in a way that they want to see again, maybe different costume, this kind of thing, then I'll do it. But I can act, right? So I can do all sorts of different things, and I've done all sorts of different characters over my life, and so I'd be happy to do any role moving forward if it's an interesting project. The one that really is the in terms of my growth as a person, maybe, if I can talk about it like that, is like where is the bridge away from being a bad guy, right?
Yeah.
What's the next level up? And I think the next level up is like redemption, right? So, like, as I said in the other interviews, you live so many years, then you're gonna do wrong things, right? And especially if you're fighting for something you believe in, right?
Yeah.
That's even more likely. And if you're somebody who's avoided those kind of conflicts in your life, I'm just speaking generally now, then fair enough. But then you've just avoided conflict, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've not really actually tried to embrace the problem. And if you do, then yeah, things are going to go wrong, right? Inevitably, and you have to recover from them, right? And I think that's the evil character, right? It's not necessarily I'm so evil, right? Istvan's driven into this life by circumstances that led up to that. All the evil characters I've played have some circumstances that have made them become evil. So how do you stop being evil, guys? That's the question, right? How do you stop being evil? And then that's the redemption arc.
Yeah.
And I'd like to play something like that, but I don't know what it would be. But I'd like to play, because there's just depth in acting in there that I've not explored yet. And I'm always the kind of bad guy who gets his comeuppance, or I'm always the bad guy who gets away with it. But it's like, after a while, you kind of want to repent. Yeah, something like that. Like a character that is repenting.
Yeah.
That is trying to redeem themselves. It would be just an interesting challenge for me, because I don't get to play that very often, and in theatre either. So, but again, that comes with age. So if you want to play those types, people who get cast as those types, they have to look like they've had, experiences, right? If they're going to be redeemed, right? They have to have done something wrong. So they tend to come with age, those parts.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
It's also a very, very interesting to see that Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of the few games where you can play as an evil character if you want, but there's also always this kind of doubt in your head. And Istvan Toth is also, that's what I like about him. He's one of the few living people who call Henry out on his actions.
Yeah.
So he's one of the few people who say, yeah, you cannot call yourself the hero when you do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you basically know better than me. So think about that before you call yourself the hero with the shining armor.
And then the other thing that poisons that apple is the Eric scene, right? The Istvan Eric scene, because there you've got like, oh man, no, he's actually kind of a nice guy, he's like, and you can always look at something like this in the same way that Henry sometimes mitigates the damage that he does himself, you as the player go, maybe I won't kill every chicken in the village, like
it's extremely
or whatever
difficult to punch chickens.
Crazy stuff that people are doing.
But I failed. I couldn't do it. I did it.
That was probably one of the best bits on X, actually, was somebody had posted up a picture of every chicken dead in the village.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
And then I put up like and then they judge me, and but that's part of the fun of the game. And I know people like, it's like why you have Grand Theft Auto, right? And in that way, it's like a kind of medieval Grand Theft Auto. You're just running around randomly mugging people.
Yeah, this is also because it seems so normal for the player to slaughter everything inside just because you want that certain piece of armor. I remember hunting for a certain type of dice in the game, and I knew that some bandit camps have them, so I slaughtered every bandit camp I saw to get those dice.
Yeah,
and at the end, I think, what have I done here? Actually, what did I just do? So I cannot call myself the good guy if I am willing to slaughter 40 people for 6 dice that I want to have.
But you know, well, you definitely can't do it in that circumstance. But if you are one of these people who's doing evil because you're fighting for what you believe in, right? Let's say the Crusades, right?
Yeah.
But even the Crusades, they had this concept of a just war. They had some kind of rules. And Islam did as well, right? Now, whether they obeyed those rules or not is a bit like the Geneva Convention, but there were rules. And
there's a moral code.
There's a moral code. And one of the questions, again, this is like not explained by the game, so I'm getting into a niche here. But like, to what extent was Istvan mitigating his harm? Was, you know, Istvan said, okay, let's burn the village, right? If you believe this Wikipedia entry or whatever, let's burn the village, right? I was doing that to save my men in the same way Henry might, right? So he's like, okay, actually, if I kill 40 villagers here, I save these guys, right? And if I save those guys, I can complete the mission quicker and there will be less villager death, like net villager death, right? So again, I tried to use it. I don't know whether I'm just playing Istvan and like wriggling my way out of the situation, but you can also use that kind of justification for like the poisoning of Merhied, I think. Yeah. Because you're like, well, okay, I'm poisoning this village, but am I actually like killing everyone in the village? No. Killed a few people in the village and everybody scattered, right? Which is what I wanted. Because I cleared the village out like that, I've saved some of those villagers, because otherwise I'd have to raise the place to the ground. Right? If you hear me. So I think sometimes Istvan's actually quite cautious, right? And he's not recklessly randomly murdering people. He's only doing it when he absolutely has to. And he'd much rather take a prisoner than kill you. Yeah, that is true. Which he does with Henry repeatedly, even though he's a commoner. He keeps taking him prisoner because he'd just rather keep you alive. You're worth more to him alive, I think. Everyone is worth more to him alive. If his plan was to conquer Bohemia, right, and become the lord of the realm, then he was killing his own peasants. Yeah. Right? So you're gonna take over the town. You don't want to kill everyone on the way, otherwise you have to repopulate the thing, or it's gonna, disintegrate into a ghost town. Yeah. So the other prime example is the Siege of Talmberg, where he takes Stephanie and Radzik hostage. This is also this classic Istvan strategy. But this all changes once he knows that they captured Eric, and he goes overboard with his. And that is his weak spot, right? They keep coming back to that. And again, like, there's a sexual relationship for sure, and certainly we were asked, to put some tension of that in our interactions. But obviously, there's a sidekick kind of relationship there. There's a father-son relationship there. There's a mixture of different things. Probably liege lord and vassal. A bit like Hans and Henry. So there's lots of like parallels and complications in that are worth it, but also not to forget the trebuchet, right? Because that's what brings him down, really, is the trebuchet. And you could argue that he's like the finger of God. Some of that kind of pleasure is like, that's his trebuchet, right? Yeah, that's his trebuchet moment. That's his way getting back to them. Yeah, and he hits the tower. Like they hit the tower, right? I think with the trebuchet. I can't remember where it flies. But when he hits the cannon, he hits the top of that tower, right? So and this is his thing with war machines as well. I think he's got this. That's why the trebuchet is like, no, right? Because I imagine, like, I know the Byzantines had this kind of like fire, right? That's in Game of Thrones, some kind of like Byzantine fire, this green fire, some kind of chemical reaction that they could do as a flamethrower, out the front of their ships. I wonder whether the Turks had something similar to that as well, like napalm, and But again, in Istvan's mind, one of the reasons why he's so into these war machines is because of his previous defeats.
Yeah. So this is the last question, actually.
Okay.
With all the things that are happening now with the KCD and fandom, if Warhorse contacted you right now to return for a third game, would you take the role again as Istvan,
of course, I
or
would take it again.
would you do other projects with Warhorse, or generally game?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love Warhorse. Yeah. I love Warhorse.
Yeah, so we can.
Yeah, I think it's. I think they've done amazing work there, and it's like all credit and due respect to them. They've done amazing work in writing. They've done amazing work in game design. Like it's a masterpiece. I mean, like I said, like my acting is a small part of that, right? I wasn't aware of things like the coloring and the settings that are going to be portrayed, the music, all of that kind of stuff. It's the acting. But obviously at the same time, I've had to spend I had to spend my life acting to have that ready for them, So all these things have to come together to get something great. Of course I would work with the studios again, like 100%, no doubt about it. I think everybody's incredibly talented, and they're really, really nice. They're really, really nice. And I know they get demonized sometimes, for all sorts of reasons. The fandom, they don't get this from Warhorse, or they're demanding this from Warhorse, and Warhorse don't give it to them, so they get angry with that. But no, they're an amazingly talented, friendly bunch. I've been living in the Czech Republic for a long time, so I really feel part of the country. I really feel committed to the country in so many different ways. I'd happily die for defending this country. I feel very strongly about it and what it represents, right? Because the Czech Republic and Bohemia, does mean something.
Yeah. And
Warhorse are a huge part of that, and they're amazing. Yeah, and I've always had loads of fun with the guys and the crew and everything, like doing these motion capture scenes. Like I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of the making of, right? I'm hoping that they show a bit more, because they only showed like a few minutes in this little mini thing, and I know they were taking loads and loads of footage of that, and I hope we see more. But because then you'll see that side of them, you'll see the friendly fun and how much fun it was and how zany it is, and then they're not some kind of like corporate beast, that doesn't care about the fans. They definitely care. I mean, and they're reacting as well. But like they've. Again, I don't work for Warhorse. I can't speak for them. Just an actor, but they kind of like, this is loaded with a lot of issues, right? This game is loaded with a lot of issues. There's a lot of conflict in the game, right? And that conflict, it mirrors the conflict within Europe, the contemporary conflict, right? The contemporary conflict between Hungary, right, and Europe. Slovakia, like there's themes that feel really, and that everyone's kind of evil, right? And everyone's got their own agendas, so it feels real in the sense of politics, even though it's set hundreds of years ago. It feels like very timely. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's so explosive, because they've put. It's the perfect anti-woke joke, or woke anti-woke joke. It's got everything in it. Yeah. It's managed to portray the modern world somehow, I think, and the conflicts of the modern world, so we can feel them, so we actually feel them. And they've put it in Bohemia. Yeah, it's great. It's great. But I doubt that they fully expected this. I would imagine that they were ready for something like this, but I think it's probably even bigger than what they were expecting. But it's impossible to know that, and it's also impossible to know how long, it will carry on. I mean, I'm now you get this ability to like swap the faces of the characters, right? That's I don't know whether that's just going to get absurd and silly, right? or whether people are going to find out new levels, you know, from
Yeah.
that, new levels of meaning, you know, new levels within the story. I mean, I've got lots of thoughts that I haven't shared yet because I'm intrigued in seeing what people do without, you know, guiding them too much, right? Because everyone's on their own path of genius here, and there's a lot of stuff I'm not seeing because I've only got so many hours a day, and like I encounter maybe 20-30 pieces of art per day, you know, like it's like being in a gallery, like all day. And yeah, and like there's been some really interesting ideas from the fandom. I thought, oh, I wish I could come up with that. That's great. You know, like that's a really interesting idea. And if you love this world so much and you love the characters so much, then you should go ahead and continue to build and develop and have fun, you know, because what's the fundamental difference between Kingdom Come, right, the computer game, and a board game or a TV show, right? You've got the game, right, and you're going to play it in as many different ways as you want, and it's your toy, right? Yeah. Istvan Toth is a toy, you know, like Henry is a toy. So yeah, so and then it's like how quickly do you get bored of this toy? Like I've played Civilization, the franchise, for a very, very long time, you know, so I can understand why people do spend hours and hours in Kingdom Come. I've got vested interest in it at the moment because I'm the actor, right? But I can absolutely understand the fans. Yeah. And I am, you know, I am to some extent caught up in a hysteria that was already there, you know, I would say. But no, I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the best games I've ever played. So this is also a huge thank you to you for making this character come to life. That is Istvan Toth. He's one of the most interesting characters in the franchise, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think this is it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I hope your viewers enjoy this interview. I hope I've not wandered off the path too much, and gone off in, you know, tangents. Yeah, but it's a very, very interesting time to be alive and dead somehow, having fallen to my death something like 10 million times now. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.